is that watch this post-cabinet press briefing, and to all who are joining for the first time. Today is Wednesday, January 14, and we have our first post-cabinet press briefing for the year, and it is going to be a very good one. We have some of our regulars that you always want to see whenever the Honorable Darrell Vaz doesn't come. We're asked, where is he? So the Honorable Darrell Vaz is here, our Minister of Energy, Transport and Telecommunications. We also have the Honorable Pernell Charles Jr., our Minister of Labor and Social Security, who has a lot of things to tell you and they're very exciting. The Honorable Matthew Samuda, our Minister of Water, Environment and Climate Change. I know I saw him. He is here this morning too. The Honorable Andrew Wheatley, our Minister with responsibility for science, technology, and special projects, will also be here. This is a very important week. We also have with us the Honorable Donovan Williams. It's so good to see you, Minister of State in the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. We also have my wonderful PS, Dr. Kassan Troop, who is in the Best Ministry. And then we also have a big congratulations to Mrs. Kedisha Campbell Rochester, the newest permanent secretary, who is in the Ministry of Energy, Transport and Telecommunications. And where is she? She's not in here yet, but she's going to be here. We congratulate her on that. Mrs. Terry Ann Thomas Gale, our Chief Education Officer, is also here. We have our Information Commissioner, Miss Celia Barkley, and her team with us. We have Dr. Kevin Brown, President of the University of Technology, here with his team and some students, and all of the other supporting staff members, students from the University of Technology. We also have members of the Youth Advisory Council here, members of the media who are always so faithfully here, Jamaicans watching at home and abroad. Good morning to you again. All right, and as we kick off our first post-cabinet press briefing of the year, I start with good news. There's always good news. Under this administration, there always is something good to talk about, and there is an absolutely amazing one that I cannot not start with. And it is in relation to the major reduction in crime in 2025. In any other place, this reduction would be front page everywhere. It would be celebrated. We'd probably have a day of celebration for it, but it has not gotten the attention that it deserves. And as Jamaicans, we need to celebrate this. 43% reduction in murders, 32% reduction in shootings, 17% reduction in overall crime. I remember seeing front page editorials on the crime situation and the fact that we need to get a handle on it. And this administration and the security forces have worked so hard, and we have seen the results, and it's not getting the front page, but we are going to make a lot of noise about it because it is something to be celebrated. Other countries around the world are looking at our example, and young people who are here, students who are here, this is something for you to be proud of. You can go out there anywhere in the world and say that your country is the standard by which other countries are watching and learning how to bring crime down. And so when you go out there, it's another reason to hold your head up high. It's not just that we run fast and we can sing and dance, but we are also experts. When we put our mind to something, we can do it. And we have done this, and we are celebrating it, and your government is continuing to work hard. We're not stopping. The first 12 days of the year, we had 12 murders, 1 per day. We still want to get it lower. But think about what that trajectory would lead to at the end of the year. Remember, over 1,600 murders. That's where we're coming from. And so this is wonderful to see the reduction, and we're going to celebrate it. I was going to also talk about school resumption and some other things, but I'm going to get straight into the presentations this morning. And First up, we are going to have the Honorable Pernell Charles Jr., who is going to give you some critical updates, but you're going to hear a lot more from him this week. This is his week. This is your week, and you'll know tomorrow why it's his week. And I think a lot of us will be celebrating and thanking him for the work of his team, and they've worked really hard. And so I want to welcome the Honorable Pernell Charles Jr.
Thank you, Minister. And I want to thank Minister for brightening up our 2026 and welcoming the entire country to our post-cab press briefing, and also for the consistency in communication to the country. I was having a conversation with somebody in my constituency in Rocky Point who was telling me they're looking forward to seeing Miss Dana, not their MP. So you're doing well. Let me also acknowledge colleague ministers, my Minister of State, Parliamentary Secretary, Permanent Secretaries, everyone who is here, all who are listening. I see the head of UTEC here. I'm assuming you're here with students as well. Yes? Yes. All right. Now, I'm here to give you a very quick but critical update. I'm going to make it brief in terms of updating you on the Hurricane Melissa report relating to assessments, and then just to highlight a few matters relating to some of our critical partners, the World Food Program, UNICEF, the World Central Kitchen, and then to expand on what was said earlier by Minister in relation to what will take place tomorrow. Let me start off by just expressing my complete acknowledgement for the work that is being done, has been done, will be done by the several members, not just of the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, but of our extended partners across government, our volunteers, private sector, international, local, diaspora, all who have joined with my Chief Technical Director, Audrey Dare Williams, who is here, and Permanent Secretary, to allow for us to have the most effective team on the ground that we have ever had in the history of this nation. This is the first time that we can report actually meeting, well, we've never had a Category 5 and never had something of this intensity, so we've never been confronted with it. But in terms of the time that we have taken and the effectiveness, when we compare to what we did in Beryl, when we compare across the Caribbean and across the developed world as well, I must tell you that I'm very proud to say that Jamaica is and will continue to be world leading, as has been said by the World Bank. Based on the reports, we are now past 70,000 assessments being done, 70,000 household assessments, as at January 9th, because we're processing and assessing at the same time. So let's go back to the 9th when we had the exact figures. That was 69,085. And so we're way past the 70,000, which I want to put that in the context that in the last 2 weeks, we have been affected by rain, which means that we've lost some of those assessment days, at least 4 days in those parishes based on consistent rain. And it speaks well to the coordination and to the determination of the team, many of whom have been sending me directly their pictures to show that despite, unless the rain is heavy, they're out there in their raincoats with their umbrellas continuing the assessments. So the Ministry of Labor and Social Security is proud to be leading the group that has moved us further up the ladder in terms of the need for us to complete our assessments. Now, when we do the assessments, it is 5 categories that our assessors record: no damage, no significant damage, minor damage, major damage, and then severe. Of course, the persons who have no damage and no significant damage, they are considered, because many of them do get benefit in the form of food packages or other support. But in terms of the cash grant to rebuild, they will not benefit from that because they have no need to. So we focus from those 5 categories down to the top 3, minor, major, and severe. And the percentages so far are 37% in terms of the minor, 35, is it CTD, for the major, and 16. I hope that adds to 100. You can, yes. Well, the rest are in the other 2 categories. Yes, yes. All right, and 16%. So it gives you a ratio. We were saying at first 40, 40, 20, but we did expect for the most severe to taper down because those were the ones that we prioritized and those are the assessments that were done first. So at this point, we have completed most, if not all of those, and therefore we anticipate that the remainder 20,000 or so assessments to be done will be in the minor category primarily and some in the major. I want to just make mention of the partnership that we have also. In terms of assessors, before I move on from the assessment, we are now past 700 assessors that have been trained, certified, and are on the ground in varying ways. And so we continue to expand and to welcome any volunteers who would like to help. Moving quickly to our partners. The World Food Program has a food assistance, cash support, and national delivery initiative, and they have been our strong partners way before Hurricane Melissa. In Hurricane Beryl, we benefited from their support in terms of cash grants that were coupled with the Rebuild Jamaica grants that were given out. And we want to acknowledge them for their strong support. They also assisted us in terms of upgrading our JH Diner Lite form, which is the digital form that we use now to collect the data that our assessors are using with the devices that allows us to have the real-time uploads. And I want to just advise the country that they have completed their in-kind food distribution phase. And as at the 8th of January 2026, approximately 98,000 food kits were distributed from the World Food Program. I think that deserves a clap. Yes. And I want to tell you, nearly 6 million meals from the World Central Kitchen and reaching more than 130,000 unique beneficiaries across the severely impacted parishes. Importantly, we are now transitioning to the more cash-based assistance because recovery is not only about receiving food, as you know, it's also about giving the families the dignity and the flexibility to meet their immediate needs as they work to restore normal life. So the World Food Program, who has been one of our major members of the Humanitarian Assistance Committee, launched in December 18th to be exact, their partnership with the ministry, where 10,047 persons have benefited so far. And their goal is to meet the needs of 16,000 households, up to 50,000 individuals, with each household getting 2 cycles of $34,000 grant to them. And that's a big support that we do appreciate, and we want to acknowledge them for that. Of course, they use our assessment list as the basis upon which they choose the beneficiaries, and many of the other partners rely on the Ministry of Labor and Social Security's assessments to determine who they will target in terms of persons who have vulnerabilities. And for the World Food Program, they target the senior citizens, persons with disabilities, and of course, families that are in need. This support is being delivered through established payment infrastructure, including one of the national agent networks that we have, one of the remittance agents. And we also welcome the accountability mechanisms that they have put in place, including an active feedback system and a monitoring in the community and at the redemption sites. Now, beyond the household support, they have also strengthened their national delivery through having a common logistics services, including transport and storage for relief items. So if you've ever volunteered and gone to some of the shelters, you would have seen these massive white units outside of the larger shelters. And that's all based on our partnership with the World Food Program. And we move essential supplies there so that they're in close proximity to those that need them the most. They've also helped us with emergency telecommunications. So very critical support, and we want to thank them for that assistance. I want to move on quickly, Minister, just 2 more points in relation to UNICEF. UNICEF is supporting the government through the Ministry of Labor and Social Security to strengthen the shock responsive social protection, particularly for children and vulnerable households. And this includes support towards an emergency multi-purpose cash top-up for vulnerable households with children. Now, this support is targeted and it is deliberate, and the initiative aims to reach 40,000 children, including children who are on path or in path households, with specific focus on those households that have pregnant and lactating women, children under 6, and children with disabilities, along with expanding the coverage to an additional 1,000 children in the disaster-affected households. So, equally important, UNICEF support is not only immediate assistance. They help us in terms of strengthening the system so that our future response is faster, continues to be fair, and transparent. And so we want to acknowledge them and thank them for the support. And just to indicate that in terms of the disability inclusion, UNICEF is also working with us, working with the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities, with a digital voucher mechanism embedded in our I Am Able JCPD app. So we're modernizing the processes and allowing for not just efficiency, but accountability. And this is designed now to reach our children with disabilities and their families. And there is, of course, the potential to scale this up to wider registered population. Let me wind down by referring to what the minister had indicated in terms of what's happening tomorrow. So tomorrow, the Prime Minister will lead in our launch of the Shelter Recovery Program. What is that? I've never heard of it. Yeah, the SRP, another acronym for you to remember. Yes. The Shelter Recovery Program will be the overarching, the umbrella program for all of the components relating to the provision of support for the impacted households in terms of their restoration, particular to the reconstruction and to rehabilitation. And you're going to hear more tomorrow. I will speak, Prime Minister will speak. And of course, this program is another one of the government's strategic, structured, deliberate approaches to providing emergency relief and recovery following Hurricane Melissa, with more information to come. I want to close off, before I close, Minister, if you'd allow me, just to place on record the government's sincere thanks to the World Central Kitchen. I don't know, yes, I don't know. Well, I know that at many of the press briefings it has been acknowledged, but we use every opportunity because millions, not just hot meals, but the provision of employment and just the support that has been given from the World Central Kitchen is remarkable. And their rapid support helped in terms of meeting the immediate needs in communities that were under pressure. And we want to tell them that we appreciate their partnership. I know the Prime Minister does. He personally had spoken to me about it. So on behalf of the government, we want to say thank you to the World Central Kitchen. In closing, remember that recovery is not a single action or any single check that you receive. It's a process. It's about stabilizing the households, supporting the dignity through the assistance that you receive, strengthening systems and restoring our homes so that the families can rebuild and do so safely. A lot more is happening. You will hear tomorrow. And until then, remember, if you have not been assessed and you think you should be assessed, utilize the self-reporting mechanism. First time ever that your government is providing you with multiple avenues to be acknowledged. It's on our website, mlss.gov.jm. Over 5,000 now have utilized it, and they will tell you that once they call, we respond. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. And of course, I have to congratulate you on your work. I know you didn't have much of a Christmas holiday, and your team, I know you were meeting with the Prime Minister quite a lot over the holiday, working through the details of this shelter recovery program. And I want to thank you. I want to thank the entire team. I know it was not easy. All the assessors that have been out there in the field throughout the holiday, we thank you. And, you know, there's so many times that I hear, you know, there are all these other people who are doing all this work in Jamaica. It's not the government. But really, the government facilitates all of that work. And you heard it. You heard about our children with disabilities getting access. It's because of the work of our Minister of Labor and Social Security and his team that we have an app that has all of them in there, and that they can be easily reached. And so when someone is coming in and wants to work with that group, we're able to say, here, this is how you can access them. When we talk about the hot meals and the tremendous work that World Central Kitchen did in Jamaica, the Ministry of Tourism at the very beginning said, here, take the convention center, use it as your base. When we are working with all those who got the text message, I know some of you thought it was fake in the West when you got that text message that said you're going to get these grants of $34,000 twice. You were thinking it was not real, but that was only able to happen because the Ministry of Labor team had done the assessments, so that when World Food Program and the UN team comes in and says, I want to help, we are able to give a credible list of those who have been affected. This is your government working for you. We're facilitating the benefits getting to those who need it. And the Ministry of Labor must be commended, and Minister Charles and Minister Williams, I want to commend you and the entire team on the work that you have done for the people of Jamaica. And CTD, thank you. Thank you very much. Up next, the man everybody wants to hear from and looks forward to hear from, the Honorable Darrell Vaz, our Minister of Energy, Telecoms, and Transportation.
Morning to everybody. I won't say Happy New Year. I'll say I wish for you a peaceful and productive New Year, because too many people are suffering to talk about happy. So firstly, as was stated earlier, the announcement, or the formal announcement, of a new permanent secretary in the Ministry of Energy, Telecommunications, and Transport, Permanent Secretary Kedisha Campbell Rochester, who takes office this morning on the 14th of January. So there's a transition, and first of all, I want to welcome PS Rochester, and of course, obviously, give my sincere appreciation and thanks to Permanent Secretary Carol Palmer, who has 23 years of service as a member, as a permanent secretary. And when I came to that ministry in 2020, people's memories are short, but that ministry was not known for the right things. And I was given the task, and with the help of P.S. Palmer, we have been there for 5 years. And the only thing that comes out of that ministry is good performance and good news. Could not be done by me alone, but the permanent secretary and the entire ministry team. So I look forward to the transition, smooth transition, and I'm making every effort to make sure that P.S. Palmer's wealth of knowledge and experience will be utilized in the transition with a permanent secretary who is going into office for the first time. So I start with that. So again, good morning to all Jamaicans, even those still living with the aftershocks of a very difficult period. Rebuilding homes, restoring livelihoods, and trying to return to some sense of normalcy after Hurricane Melissa. I want to begin by acknowledging the reality. Coming out of Cabinet meeting on Monday, the government's focus remained firmly on the people, our children who need safe, reliable transport to school, our communities that depend on connectivity to function, and families waiting for power to be fully restored so they can move forward. These are not abstract policy matters. These affect daily life and opportunities. So today I'll give you an update as to where we are with restoration. And I will start with the Rural School Bus Program, and I'm pleased to report that the program continues to be operational, stable, and delivering good service. As of January 26, 82 rural school buses are available and fully deployed across dispatch locations island-wide. Operations commenced successfully at the start of 26 school term, with buses running on schedule and without disruption. In anticipation of increased demand, additional drivers were recruited and boarded, strengthening route coverage and reducing the risk of service gaps. This was a deliberate step to ensure continuity and reliability. On the matter of the cashless operations, the program is ready for full implementation of the student transportation card on February 1st. Again, I'm glad PS Troop is here, and Minister Dixon and Crawford and Morgan. I want to take the opportunity to encourage parents and students who have not yet signed up for their student transportation card to do so now, as the drivers will not be accepting cash, and it becomes effective February 1st. Again, you may visit JUTC or your Ministry of Education websites or social media pages for the link to complete the registration form. Unfortunately, from September, we have been offering free service as introductory, and then of course with Melissa, and now we are into a new year and it is unsustainable. So I want to make it very clear that come February 1st, if you do not have a student card and you have not topped up your student card to pay the subsidized fare of $50, you will be going back to the old system of paying $300 to $600 a day and going through the trauma of competing with the adults for transportation. So it is both cost effective for you to get the card, safer for your children to travel that way, and more convenient. So again, the warning has been sounded. Come February 1st, students who do not have student cards will not be allowed to take the rural school buses. I'm appealing to the MPs, to the councillors, to the churches, to the NGOs, to the government entities. We need to get the registration up in the month of January so that the buses will operate at optimum. I move on to the Universal Service Fund and of course the telcos. Universal Service Fund has completed 116 site assessments with their remaining assessment scheduled for completion before the end of January. These assessments guide where connectivity is most urgently needed and ensure resources are deployed where they will have the greatest impact for connectivity. To date, 22 Starlink installations have been completed, restoring connectivity at libraries, school, post offices, and community centers across Westmoreland, Hanover, St. Elizabeth, St. James, Trelawney, Manchester, and St. Anne. These sites are already serving as lifeline for communication, education, and community coordination. Looking ahead, 64 additional Starlink installations are projected for completion during January, Therefore, the USF has restored 3 community Wi-Fi sites using a combination of Starlink and solar technology, creating more resilient and sustainable connectivity solutions, particularly in the disaster areas. Procurement is also advancing for network equipment, tablets to support the ongoing assessment, solar packages, and signage. The target remains clear for full restoration by March 2026. The USF continues to demonstrate the connectivity that is not a luxury. It's essential infrastructure, and we will continue to deploy innovative, resilient solutions to keep communities connected. Flow, as of January 12th, reports ongoing improvements in service stability across mobile and fixed line networks, with 95% of mobile sites restored, and progress is also evident in the fixed services, with 72% of customers reconnected and experiencing better service availability. Digicel continues to make strong progress as well. Approximately 94% of mobile network is restored, with 871 of 925 sites now online, supported by commercial power generators and satellite backhaul where required. Restoration levels are strongest in the eastern and central parishes, and work continues in the western region to close coordination with JPS as a power and pole infrastructure is rebuilt. Let's move on to the big ticket, big success story of the restoration, and that is the JPS and the electricity restoration. First of all, as committed yesterday in Parliament, let me clarify a particular statement that I made in Parliament yesterday, which turned out to be erroneous information given to me by the Jamaica Public Service, where I indicated that in one instance, 40 miles of lines were rebuilt with over 1,000 poles from Ferris Cross to Hodges, Westmoreland to St. Elizabeth, to restore approximately 2,000 customers. That information was incorrect. Work has started with 100 poles that have been laid so far out of the total amount of 1,000 poles. It's about 40 miles of roadway. So it will take some time, but again, the work has started. So I want to apologize for the misinformation that was given in Parliament, and I will make sure that it is corrected on Hansard, and also to say very clearly that the information that I stated was erroneous and incorrect. And the information was given to me by the Jamaica Public Service. Nobody needs to ask the words that JPS and I had about this. And I can assure you it will never happen again. I want to also make another clarification, and I'm happy that I have peace and quiet and no noise, that people can listen and understand and decipher between misinformation and proper information. At no time in my presentation yesterday did I mention Eastern Westmoreland having light. I gave the statistics on the parish of Westmoreland, and I'm going to repeat it again. Westmoreland has 34,603 customers. The customers that are out at this time is 17,096, approximately 49% of the customers in Westmoreland continue to be out of power. But let it not be lost that in December, the middle of December when I spoke, Westmoreland was at 18%. They are now at 51% in a matter of a few weeks. So I want to make that clarification to make sure that the information is very clear. What I can say is that I have confirmed with the JPS that by the end of this week, Darlington will have light and restoration will continue in earnest between now and the end of January. So again, East and Westmoreland will start to get light. Minister Samuda will speak about Roaring River and what we had to do and what that's going to do. But I want to make it very clear that the opposition's position in response to my statement in Parliament on November 25th was that they were not in support of the release of $150 million unless they knew where the balance of money was coming from. That simply says that their position, and if they were where I'm standing and where I'm sitting with my colleagues in cabinet, that $150 million would not have been released. And therefore, not only would East and Westmoreland not have light, but all of those affected parishes would have a much slower restoration. And the JPS has confirmed to me that neither Light or Roaring River water supply would be back up until the last quarter of 2026. That means September to December at earliest. So when they grandstand about their constituency having no light at all, and they are going to get light this week starting and increase as we go along every day, that's a much better position than their own party's position, which would be that they would not have released $150 million. I want to make it clear again. This minister and this government has no formal or informal discussion, correspondence about anything to do with any further funding by the government of Jamaica other than the $150 million. So that was raised also in Parliament yesterday. I want to make it clear. I can't answer that question that they are asking me because I have nothing in front of me. So I really hope that what they will do now is to concentrate on working with the JPS, with a good policy decision by a good government to let us restore light as quickly as possible. The last clarification that I want to give is that, and I suspect that you have it somewhere for me, what I said on November 25th when I spoke in Parliament, I categorically stated that we were going to have full restoration by the end of January, early February, save and except for any critical areas. You have it there, you can play it? But based on the fact that we need restoration as a country in the shortest possible time, the government of Jamaica has agreed to loan the JPS $150 million United States dollars on the basis that they will use that money, which is estimated at $75 million a month, to restore the entire grid, save and except for any special area that may not be reachable, but the major areas by the end of January, latest early February. What are the terms? Thank you very much. So again, happy that we have quiet and peace so that you can hear. We are now at 93% restoration. We have 51,000 customers still out. 30,000 of those customers are ready to receive electricity and will receive between now and what I just said, what you just heard, end of January, early February. There's 21,000 customers that are not ready to receive. So JPS cannot be held accountable to restore 21,000 people who are not ready. What we are going to do with JPS, with the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, with JSIF, is we are going to identify those areas to see how the government can target those areas in conjunction with JPS to get them ready to receive electricity. So we will be at 96% by the end of January, early February. But if you take those 21,000 that are not ready for connection, which JPS cannot be held accountable for, we would have succeeded in delivering on our commitment for early restoration by end of January, early February, as against the last quarter of this year. I can't even imagine to even get into what would be the result of no water and no light in certain parishes and communities by the end of this year. I can't even understand what would happen with business, what would happen with the government, what would happen with the people, what would happen with health. This government took the right decision, and nobody, with all the noise that they're making, is going to be able to undo the results of that decision. I want to just remind you, 300 linesmen came in between the 15th and the 23rd of December, but they didn't have their equipment. But they were still tasked and they did what they could do. The first set of equipment arrived here on Boxing Day. That was Holland. And the second, on the 2nd of January, that was Greystone. So what you have seen in terms of the performance of JPS is 2 weeks, 3 weeks, full capacity for Holland, and 2 weeks for Greystone. That's what you have seen in terms of those trucks and equipment that you're seeing all over those worst affected areas. And that is why I can say without fear of contradiction and fully confident that the 30,000, despite the last mile, which is the most difficult part of the restoration, will receive light by the end of this month, early February. And we will work in collaboration with JPS and all the government entities to get those other 21,000 in a position to receive light at the end of that time. So again, what is very, very important is that the work continues and the work is going to be completed on time, on budget, for the benefit of those persons who are suffering. And I want to indicate that I am insisting on the JPS that they start to provide a daily update with the 51,000 customers out as to where they are and what is the projected time for them to get back light. Because they are seeing light all around them and they have no light. And they are becoming anxious and frustrated. So you can rest assured that we will have better information flow and more detailed information flow. Last but not least, and this one is a huge, shows how government works for the people, the National Energy Poverty Reduction Program, as you know, is playing a critical role in the post-Melissa recovery. A total of $1 billion has been allocated for works between December 25 and March 26, targeting over 2,600 households for house wiring and major electrical repairs. Works are currently approximately 40% complete, with all contractors fully mobilized and activities underway across 9 parishes island-wide. The largest rollout under the program is progressing in Clarendon, Manchester, Trelawney, St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, Hanover, St. James, Portland, and St. Mary, with strong progress already recorded in several areas. This is $900 million of contracts that are in place and work has started. I have prioritized the most affected areas because that 21,000 that we spoke about, this is going to help them as well because this is at no cost. So they get rewiring and certification at no cost. So we have Trelawney, Albert Town, 160 house wiring, St. Elizabeth, 332 in Black River and adjoining communities, Westmoreland, 150 house wiring and minor repairs in White House and adjoining communities. And just to let you know that is Member of Parliament Dayton Campbell. Just for the record. And then 300 house wiring in Catherine Hall, which I'm going to on Thursday. So overall, 1,200 houses were flooded in Catherine Hall and West Green, and they will be supported with 900 completed to date through the support of the REP program and the National Energy Poverty Reduction Program. So again, collaboration. And I just want to close by saying it really is for me a very big pleasure to sit here and with my colleagues, younger colleagues. I'm considered an elder now on the way out. But to see the hard work that Minister Samuda, Minister Morgan, Minister Dixon, Minister Rhoda Crawford, Minister Charles, who has left, Delroy Williams, all young, vibrant, hard-working members of Parliament, working in the best interest of Jamaica under one of the best governments and by far the best prime minister that this country has ever seen. And I make no apology. God is good. God is great. And for God to have made sure that we were at the wheel in this time was not by chance, but by design. May God continue to bless Jamaica, land we love.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister Vaz, especially for that last blessing. We needed it. And I would just like to note that Minister Vaz has been able to restore and work with the JPS in this manner and to lend the $150 million without us as Jamaicans having to extend the license under the existing terms that we know do not work for the people of Jamaica. And it is important that we note that the government, Minister Vaz and his team, have worked especially hard to be able to make sure that we are still in a good position when it comes to negotiating that license and getting for Jamaicans what they need in relation to electricity and bringing costs down. So thank you, Minister Vaz, for your presentation. And also, I should note, yes, and the negotiations have started. He would like to report to Jamaica. So those negotiations on a new potential license have already started, and he will stand strong on the side of Jamaicans because that's who he represents, not private interests, the Jamaican people who have said for years electricity costs are too high, or businesses have said it has been an impediment to their businesses. He is going to be fighting for the people of Jamaica. And Minister Vaz, I'd like to let you know that in relation to the school bus program, you heard it from him, 1st of February, you have to have your card to go on the school buses. The permanent secretary has been working, Minister, and all school safety and security officers and our guidance counselors and deans of disciplines will be going across our schools to do school-based registrations of the children. They have 280 tablets that have been supplied by eLearning Jamaica, and so that process starts on Monday. We're going across the schools. Parents, you can do your part too. You can go and register for your children to get their card. And so thank you again, Minister Vaz. And up next is Minister Matthew Samuda. And of course, he's not just coming here as our Minister of Water, Environment, and Climate Change. He's also the President of the United Nations Environment Assembly. Congratulations, Minister, and welcome this morning.
Thank you, Minister Dixon. Extending warm greetings to colleague ministers, permanent secretaries, heads of agencies, members of the media, Jamaicans all. I think Minister Vaz would have done a good job in setting the context for restoration of utility services. Ultimately, we are tied at the hip with power supply in the water sector. So it is important that persons understand that this intrinsic link does affect water supply. If you have light, usually it's a few days after that we're able to restore water because the pumps have to be powered up and lines have to be recharged at the back end of it. I think it's also important, colleagues, that we remind Jamaicans the structure of the water sector, because there's something that I think triggers ill feelings when you're out of water, you're out of light, but within your neighborhood or within your view, you're able to see persons with light and you call a neighbor and they have water, etc. So I think it needs to be understood exactly how the water sector is structured and how it works, firstly. As a reminder, the National Water Commission services approximately 80% of citizens in Jamaica. Between 4 and 5% is serviced by private suppliers. These are the Kankaras and Rose Hall water supplies, and the UDC has about 3 small systems. And there are other systems where schemes may have been built and developers would have applied for private licenses to supply those schemes because there was water supply in the areas. That's between 4 and 5%. The other 15% is indeed supplied by municipal systems, many times designed either by the parish councils themselves or built by the Rural Water Supply Limited. Firstly, the easiest one to report on is the private suppliers. We've been in contact with all private suppliers that enjoy licenses to extract, distribute, and produce and sell water, and they have reported that their systems are 100% restored. The second one, which is the larger one, which is perhaps more complicated, but certainly more consequential, is the National Water Commission. We can report that at this morning, 93.5% of customers have been restored in Jamaica. Now, that does not mean that 93% of systems have been restored, but 93.5% of the customers of the National Water Commission have been restored. Within that 93.5%, that doesn't mean that our main hasn't broken somewhere this morning and we're restoring service in an area. But those customers which are serviced by pumps have been energized. There is no water supply issue. There are utility breaks from time to time, but 93.5% of customers of the Water Commission have been restored. As you can imagine, this is obviously heavily skewed to the east. And as you go further west is where you have the greater disruptions. This gives you an idea of the number of systems and the distribution of systems which have been disrupted. You'll see that we are at 588 systems restored and 133 systems currently still down. This is actually a reversal, Minister Dixon, from our update, the last update that we'd have provided in December. So for this, we're particularly happy and want to extend our thanks to JPS for working with us. Now you'll see the parishes that are at 0, and you get the idea of the distribution and how we're building out. Generally in the east of the country, the northeast certainly, in Kingston and St. Andrew, on the plains, we're doing particularly well in restoring systems. Now this is an idea of the distribution of customers. And though that's the total view, 33,746 customers still without water, I think it's easier to view in this way. This gives you an idea of where customers are fully restored. St. Thomas, St. Mary, Portland, KSA, St. Catherine, those customers, we have no disruptions. Now, it doesn't mean if you are on a regulated system because of where you live, that you used to get water 2 days a week, that you suddenly have water 7 days a week. It means that we have restored to pre-Melissa levels of supply. You can see the issues in St. Anne. Those are in the hills where there's still some JPS issues. You can see the issues in Clarendon. As we move to the west, we have 2,865 customers out in St. James, 7,140 out in Hanover, 9,200 out in Westmoreland, and 12,455 out in St. Elizabeth. And Trelawney, we have 940 customers out, but we've made steady progress there. Now, this is the sort of map distribution, and as I said, as you could imagine, it is heavily skewed to the west in terms of where challenges still remain. Now, one of the things that took a while for me to even absorb when I became water minister was the calls you'd get from members of parliament, councillors, custodians of the parishes, citizens association, regular citizens who had had the number for the water ministry long before I was born, who still call when they have particular issues, was really how your distribution worked. 100 systems supply over 70% of your customer base. So even when you see something like this and still see a lot of red dots, which reflect systems that are out, it is still less than 7% of customers that these red dots serve. So you'd have heard both from the head of JPS and the head of Water Commission what they refer to as last mile restoration. That is why it is so challenging to close that last gap, because it is a number of systems, as we'd have seen, over 130 systems which are still out, but serving very small communities. And in many ways, these are in remote areas. So just giving you that so that you understand the space. This is what we would classify as our heat map in terms of systems which are out. And it gives you an idea that there is particular challenge, as we know, in Westmoreland and indeed St. Elizabeth. Now, it is important to note that this map will look very different tomorrow. And for that, we are thankful. As Minister Vaz would have mentioned, the Roaring River system is the last large system that is out. Now, for those who remember their geography, you can contemplate that this system supplies everything from Paradise and Savannah Lamar all the way to White House, which is a pretty long drive if you think about it. So you understand the large area of geography which is impacted by this system. Now, we have been using an on-site generator, but that on-site generator doesn't have the capacity to run the Roaring River system at full capacity, which means areas which were even at slight elevations, even though Savannah Lamar has had water since 48 hours after the storm, right? The areas with even slight elevations, because you weren't able to pump at a particular pressure, would not have benefited from that restoration. So yes, the Savannah Lamar Hospital had water 2 days after a Category 5 storm, but the areas surrounding and many of the residential areas were out. Now, with the restoration of this system, which is projected for today, we expect to be able to run the Roaring River system at full capacity. What does this mean? It means 30,000 Jamaicans will have water in 24 hours after the restoration of that system. So it is a major step forward in both moving from 93%, now 30,000 people. We've done the estimate based on households, commercial space. It's a little over, but we'll be conservative in that regard. Now, there is an area that has, I think, suffered disproportionately with water supply, and that is Darliston. And Darliston suffers because of the elevation. Roaring River supplies it. And there are communities en route between Savannah Lamar and Darliston which have suffered. Now, this would be particularly, I think the communities of Whithorn, of Caledonia, and Barneyside should be particularly happy this morning, because when Roaring River system turns on, we will be able to now turn on generators at these 3 locations, which haven't been powered up by JPS yet, which will move the water all the way to Darliston. So within 24 to 36 hours, the awful circumstances that citizens have had to live in that area, depending solely on trucked water, will come to an end. Doesn't mean that it will be perfect because these are generators. They will run 12 to 16 hours a day, but these communities will be able to fill their personal water storage and to largely cut out the need for trucked water. 30,000 plus people over the next 24 hours. If postcab was tomorrow, we'd have a slightly different verbiage, but we are happy because this is the last major system that is out. So this is a major stride for us this morning. That's the general view of the NWC circumstance. But what has this meant in the West? Just to give you an idea, and this is just in the West, this isn't a national viewpoint. To fuel generators, we have spent in excess of $200 million. Fuel, it's not rental. To rent generators not owned by the state, we have spent $450 million. To truck water, where you see the heat map, has already cost us $250 million, using over 70 trucks, both what is owned and what has to be leased or paid for by load based on the commercial arrangements. This has had a significant impact. It is why the Minister of Finance would have made her allocations in the supplementary budget to NWC, both to manage loss of revenue as well as to manage restoration costs. You should also recall at my last update, we were still speaking about the Martha Brae and the Great River systems. You'll recall that the intake lines for Great River were washed away in the storm. That was a significant feat of engineering. We got support from the Army Engineering Corps, we got support from contractors, and of course, NWC staff. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to also align your thoughts before I move into the updates related to rural water systems, very small rural water systems, that this financial impact has been significant and it is not yet over. Because water being in the area doesn't mean that customers in the area have reopened. So I'm starting to align your thoughts to the fact that with our major commercial customers down in the West, this will have a negative impact on the balance sheet of the Water Commission for some time. In many cases, persons don't understand cross-subsidy in the water sector. So you may live in an area, and yes, you pay your water bill on time, but it is another area that genuinely pays your water bill because of the cost of supplying your water system. So I'm aligning persons' thoughts to the fact that we will provide updates over the next 30 days on exactly what that impact is going to be. Our customer service team are calling all of our commercial customers who do pay at a higher rate and do consume significantly more water to assess exactly what that revenue shortfall will be. Though we are restoring service, it doesn't mean that all businesses have restored themselves. So that causes its own challenges. On the subject of the municipal water systems, which supply approximately 15% of our citizens, the eastern rural water systems, for the most part, are largely back up, well over 90%. But one of the things that has come to us through the assessment that we have made from east to west is just the appalling condition of these small systems that serves many of our very small rural communities. We have completed our assessment, and in the next 2 weeks, when appropriate to do so, I'll provide a full update to the nation by way of the Parliament. These systems that are largely managed by municipal corporations will need a new paradigm as we go forward. The Prime Minister has been clear that we will need to build back better. We will also need to operate better, and we'll have to look at a new model for our very small rural systems that are served by parish councils. That new model is twofold. One, it will need a significant resource injection, and we have a meeting with Minister Mackenzie and Minister Williams later today, and we'll provide an update in terms of what that looks like. But beyond that, and for your update, the government of Jamaica will pursue a new social water policy as an addendum to the water policy of Jamaica. That will govern how we manage these small systems, because as we've seen from east to west, north to south, many of them are in a state of disrepair pre-Melissa. So even though they've been restored, God bless the level of restoration. So we have a lot of work to undertake over the next 3 to 4 years on the policy framework, on the funding model for these, and a lot of engineering work to do. And the final missing link, I believe, will also have to do significant training for these operators of these water systems that operate outside of the utility footprint. Now, what does that mean for those who are without water, Senator Morgan? Very simply, it means in the West, we will have to roll out a major injection of engineering focus to bring these small systems in very small districts back up to operating capacity. And that will take significant time. In the interim, I have directed that allocations be made to the parish councils out of what we would have allocated for water trucking, which was some $400 million announced in December. We will be making an allocation to each of the parish councils in the areas most affected to deal with these small districts. We will publish those numbers later this week once we complete the meetings with Minister Mackenzie. But we want to assure citizens that may be listening or watching in these small districts that yes, there will be challenges for the coming months, but no, you'll not be left alone to purely purchase this water by yourself. We'll work with our parish councils to significantly increase their capacity for trucking, because it will require increased trucking in these districts. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. I mean, how many ministers can come up here and talk without any speaking notes and wax so eloquently on the water systems all across the country? Only Minister Samuda can do that. Minister Samuda, we are very lucky to have you in that ministry, and I know you've been working really hard, and I know there are many Jamaicans who are just looking forward to the restoration of electricity so that they can get water, and I know that you move very quickly once electricity is restored. And so I thank you for that update. And I know Jamaica is happy to hear about the restoration efforts there in terms of water. All right, we are now going to be moving to have a very interesting presentation. It's a very different kind of morning. And I tell you that we should celebrate this in Jamaica also. I mean, how many countries do you have that have 4 ministers, 2 ministers of state, a parliamentary secretary, permanent secretaries come before the country and the media and says, this is what we're doing. I even have cabinet notes to tell you what happened in cabinet yesterday, but I don't know if we're going to end up with time to go through that. This is something very special, and our administration believes very, very strongly in making ourselves available to report to the people of Jamaica and to take questions from the media, which we will do at the end. And so we're doing multiple things this morning. You're getting updates on where we are with major initiatives of the government, and we're also launching some of our public awareness related things during this context also. It is Data Privacy Month, and we have a minister who is also kind of like the STEAM Santa Claus, and I'll tell you why I say that. We have been saying in the ministry that, you know, STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics is the focus, and it's strategically important for Jamaica and for our children to move in this direction, because that's where the world is going, and we want our children to be a part of that shift that's happening globally. But in order to do that, we also have to have people who are supporting that effort. And Dr. the Honorable Andrew Wheatley has been a minister that has been supporting that. And out of his portfolio, which is science, technology, and special projects, he has been able to work with his team to get STEAM toys. A lot of them very science-based, engineering-based, arts-based for our children, because it's not just what we do in school, it's also the way we play. And Minister Wheatley got that. And so over Christmas, he was playing Santa and delivering all those wonderful toys to our children. And so this again is an example of a joined up government. We have initiatives in the Ministry of Education, but at the same time here in the Office of the Prime Minister under Minister Wheatley, we are seeing efforts in the science and technology portfolio to also support what we are doing in the education sphere. And so I'm very happy, even though he's not talking about his STEAM toys today, to thank him for that and to have him speak on data privacy this morning. So please welcome Dr. the Honorable Andrew Wheatley.
Thank you very much, Minister. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. You know, earlier we heard from some of my colleagues speaking about the restoration work that is being done across the length and breadth of Jamaica, in particular the western end of the island, and also the initiatives of the government to get people back to living, or even living in a better standard than prior to Hurricane Melissa. However, as we move the country forward and we start to re-embrace technology, there are a number of things that we have to bear in mind. We are not only looking to embrace technology in the recovery and the build-out of resilience, but to embrace technology to create opportunities for our people. And Minister Dixon spoke about STEAM being a critical component: science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. Our students, our young minds, in embracing those subject areas and becoming more innovative. Consequent to that, we have to now ensure that we know how to treat with data. And this month, we will be celebrating, or is marked as the Global Month for Data Protection Awareness. And it seeks to sharpen public awareness and strengthen the way personal information is handled in an increasingly digital world. Here in Jamaica, this observance aligns directly with the Office of the Information Commissioner's public education mandate under the Data Protection Act. And I must make special mention of our Information Commissioner, Ms. Celia Bartley, and of course, the President of the University of Technology, Dr. Kevin Brown, who is also working with the University of Technology, is working with the Office of the Information Commissioner as we increase the awareness of data protection, need for data protection. As I stated earlier, the month of January is observed as Data Protection Month, but in particular, January 28th serves as the key anchor for privacy awareness and capacity building. Jamaica is using that global spotlight to push practical readiness, especially as technologies like artificial intelligence increase what can be inferred, profiled, and predicted from personal data. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to modernize our privacy posture at the same pace we modernize our services. So as we incorporate technologies in our daily lives, whether it is for personal or for business, or you communicate or relate to your government, we have to ensure that the privacy component is in line with the way we use the technologies. For citizens and families, this is about protecting your identity, your reputation, and your peace of mind. Be deliberate about what you share online. Treat your personal information the way you would treat your money. Limit where it goes, ask why it is needed, and be cautious about who has access to your information. For businesses and public bodies, this is a readiness issue. Data protection is not just a policy document on a shelf. It is governance, staff awareness, vendor controls, and incident preparedness. In fact, we are moving to a state where entities within Jamaica now must conform with international standard as relates to data privacy. For example, our hotels. In fact, the European Union, through their GDPR, is very much aggressive or we treat with their citizens who are coming here to do business or to vacation here. So data privacy and data protection is not something that is confined to us here in Jamaica. In fact, it is an international standard that is now out there, and that level of awareness is very important for us to be compliant and to be able to do business with other jurisdictions. If you are collecting personal information, you have a duty to manage it responsibly and securely. Strong privacy practices reduce risk and strengthen confidence in the services you provide. For our privacy and compliance professionals, particularly our data protection officers, Data Privacy Month is a strategic moment to benchmark your programs, identify gaps, and strengthen controls. Ladies and gentlemen, this is even more important as technologies like, as I said before, artificial intelligence expand. We all know that artificial intelligence can be used to create, let me say, profiles that, mimics any one of us here. In fact, it is predicted on personal data, access to personal data, your likes, dislikes, your characteristics, your physical features. Artificial intelligence can manipulate same to generate photos, pictures, even the way you express yourself. And so all that data is exposed and treated by persons tasked with collecting your data is very important. But you also have a responsibility to manage how you share your data as well. Against that backdrop, I want to acknowledge again the Office of the Information Commissioner for leading a focused program of public education and capacity building this month, with special attention, and I emphasize this, special attention to youth digital safety. Minister, we have been providing our students in particular with devices that are geared towards enhancing the learning experience. And at times they will deviate from the learning experience, which is in a very controlled environment where you access information on the Ministry of Education's website. Our young people are very inquisitive and will visit other sites that will at times ask them to provide additional information outside of the scope that would be required by the Ministry of Education, for example, or other learning institution or sites that will provide, will need information to provide them with learning material. And they themselves now must be taught and be brought to a level of appreciation that you have to be very careful or you expose yourself or you treat your data or you share your information. And so the special attention is to youth digital safety and, of course, business preparedness and responsible data governance across Jamaica. I want to use this opportunity to reinforce a clear national message. Privacy protection is a shared responsibility. It's a shared responsibility across government, business, and citizens. Ladies and gentlemen, as Jamaica observes Data Privacy Month, we join the global initiative that reminds us of a simple truth. In a digital society, privacy is not a luxury. It is a requirement for safety, trust, and resilience. And I want to just encourage the public to follow the OIC's updates and participate where possible. Data Privacy Month is about building a national culture where personal data is handled with care, respect, and accountability. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we all know that trust is the foundation of digital transformation. Our information commissioner would like to just share a few words quickly as relates to data privacy and data privacy month.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you all. Minister has given a very comprehensive statement about the importance of data privacy. So rather than give a speech, what I would like to point out to everyone is in terms of our role as the regulators of data protection in Jamaica and our particular mandate in needing to both ensure compliance with the Act, but also to inform, educate, and advise persons as to what it really means and requires. And in that regard, we utilize this month, Data Privacy Month, and particularly Data Privacy Day on January 28th, to partner with both private and public sector in bringing information and awareness to the public. We have, as a part of our strategic objective, to create a culture of privacy in Jamaica. And we have to recognize that privacy is about behavior. Culture is about behavior, sorry. We don't change a culture until we change the way how people act. And so it has to be personal to each and everyone, whether operating as a business or moving around and interacting with others as individuals. And in this regard, if you want to change a culture, you also have to start with the very young. So Minister has mentioned what we intend to do in terms of the involvement of the youth. And so we just want to remind the public that as we put forward our information and as we implore you to help us in protecting privacy, you have to focus on not just your own protection of privacy, but building up the younger generation. Now, we have a month of activities planned that will focus on different stakeholders and involve them. And I would just quickly invite our communications and international relations manager. Oh, sorry, in the interest of time, I will just outline. We started this month with our church service on Sunday to welcome our blessings on this year, which will mark the 5th year of operation of the OIC and the operation of the Data Protection Act. We have, as a part of our activities, school tours, which will involve our visits to Arden High School and St. Jago High School, which will be our first one. It's actually tomorrow. We will also be having our conference on January 28th. At this conference, we have partnered with UTech Jamaica Limited. They have a data protection program already, and they also have an annual conference. Thanks to them and their partnership, we have our keynote speaker in the form of the IAPP President and CEO, Trevor Hughes, who will be coming to impart with stakeholders in terms of taking control of their data, which is the theme for the year. But for the conference, we are focusing on building out privacy programs and building out trust, dealing with digital distrust in this age of technology and AI. So we have presented our schedule of events, and we invite persons to just focus on our pages, watch for updates, and participate and share with the OIC as best as possible as we seek to impart information to the public. Thank you so much, Minister.
Thank you very much, Ms. Barclay. It's good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. And it's nice to see you. And I know there's a lot of work happening on data protection. And as the minister said, it is absolutely important, and we have to start young. And this is where we're going to work with our children. They know AI very well, and they are using it. And it is our responsibility to get them to use it safely and to protect data. We have one more presentation, which we have to do, and then we have to take questions. I know we've gone long, but it's a lot of information that we have. UTech students, don't you think this is good? This is a good thing. You're learning a lot. Good. I'm glad you're here. And we do this very regularly. And so we now have our Chief Education Officer, Terry Ann Thomas Gale, who's going to come and she's going to present on the reopening of schools. And the Ministry of Education, PS, tell the entire team they've done a fantastic job. I know Net is here too. Latoya Harris Garty is here, and the Net team has been fabulous. Where is Carrie? Carrie, we need to put the camera on you. Isn't Carrie here? I thought Carrie was here. Okay, but our team in the ministry, our building team in the ministry has also been doing a lot of work. As I've gone around, I've seen the work happening. The contractors were working on during the whole holiday, even on the holidays, Christmas Day, New Year's Day, they were working to open schools. And Mrs. Terry Ann Thomas Gale is going to come and tell you about that. And she's also going to be speaking on some adjustments to PEP, CSEC, NCT VET, and also City and Guild. So it's a very informative 10 minutes that you're going to be hearing.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Minister. I acknowledge the presence of everyone here. We will go straight into the presentation. I am pleased to announce that we currently have all 1,010. Thank you. All 1,010 institutions up and running. Our schools have really demonstrated the resilience that we have developed within the ministry. Within the 7 parishes, the mostly severely impacted parishes, we have 446 institutions. They're all up and running. Region 3, St. Anne and Trelawney. Region 4, Hanover, St. James and Westmoreland. Region 5, Manchester and St. Elizabeth. Our reopening policy saw us really putting safety first. We ensured that we work closely with the Ministry of Health and Wellness and to ensure that the space for our students safe and ready for operation. We do practice through education in emergency, different operational modalities, and these not only include face-to-face, but remote and staggered approach. So I'll be giving you the update based on the region. So Region 3, as I said earlier, St. Anne and Trelawney. We have 123 institutions in Region 3. We have 109 currently operating a face-to-face modality. We have 14 using the rotational schedule, and our exam grades are given priorities for face-to-face. The rotational schedule is used for the other grades. In Region 4, that's the most severely impacted region, I'm pleased to advise that we have 164 institutions in that region. We have 127 operating full face-to-face and 37 using a rotational schedule. Region 5, Manchester and St. Elizabeth, we have 162 institutions. We have all institutions open. We have 135 operating face-to-face, 7 using rotational schedule, 19 using the reduced hours, and 1 school, I think it should be open by today, that was Ginger Hill. They were cleaning after the shelter was closed. The critical implementation challenges that we face, and we're overcoming them daily, that of infrastructure repairs, electricity restoration, and water supply and tank replacement. But as we improve, we are able to move ahead speedily. What we have done, we have gone ahead and we have looked at the national standards curriculum. This curriculum is used in all primary level institutions and up to grade 9. We have done the modification to this curriculum, and I'm just going to show you a snippet of what it looks like. So we have moved for example, in mathematics for grade 4, we went through and we looked at all the objectives for mathematics. At grade 4, we had 124 objectives. What we did, we looked at the most essential objectives for mathematics. That means the students must achieve these in order to move to the next grade level. And we saw where we had 48 such objectives. And so we have communicated that to our schools. We have done a reprint of the curricula for grades 1 through 9, and we have sent it out in hard copies to the affected regions, and electronic copies are available for the other parishes. For language arts, for example, we had 138 objectives at grade 6. We have condensed that to 90 objectives. I want to reassure the public that condensing to a smaller number of objectives, the students will not be at a loss. We looked at those objectives that are usually call them the general objectives. That means these must be done in order for us to speak to achievement of skills and competencies. Changes to the 2026 sitting of the primary exit profile. Through extensive consultations, we have finalized our sitting components for 2026. At the grade 6 level, we will see our students doing the ability test. The ability test looked at quantitative and verbal reasoning. You really need to be exposed to the curricula up to at least grade 3 to achieve this. So this is not based on the grade 6 curriculum. They will get 40 multiple choice items. They will also sit mathematics curriculum-based test, and within that curriculum-based test, there are at least 20 multiple choice items that will measure numeracy. The grade 6 mathematics test is based on the grade 6 curriculum. The grade 6 language arts, the grade 6 curriculum-based tests for language arts, they will also have some literacy components. So both the CBT, the curriculum-based tests for mathematics and language arts, they both have 60 multiple choice items. At grade 5, our students will only do performance tasks in language arts and mathematics. The performance tasks will see the students doing responding to 4 to 6 open-ended questions. I just want to remind the public that the primary exit profile at the different grade level is based on the curriculum at the grade level. Our grade 4 students will only do the grade 4 literacy and numeracy test. These are the administration dates. Our grade 6 students will sit their exams beginning April 29th, 2026 and April 30th, 2026. Our grade 5 performance tasks will be done on June 10th, 2026. Grade 4 will be on June 24th, 2026. The placement mechanism remains the same. Our grade 6 students will be transitioning to high school using their grade 4 PEP exam that they did in 2024, their grade 5 PEP exam that they did in 2025, and the components being done at grade 6 in 2026. I'm excited to announce that we have been looking at resourcing our institutions in education in emergency. We have gone ahead, and I want at this time to acknowledge our donors and our partners, UNESCO and UNICEF. They have really come on board with us, and a lot of our local publishers as well. We have reproduced our learning kits. So each institution within those greatly affected regions, each student within the grades, so grades 1 through grade 9, will be receiving a learning kit. So they get their learning kit. This learning workbook, they are in different volumes. So this book should last 1 month. I want to emphasize how we use this book. So the students go in using the rotational model. When they go in, they're taught face-to-face. When they're in the remote space, work is given from this book, along with other resources that we have supplied to our institution. This workbook is aligned perfectly to the modified curriculum. And I have sample here so you can interact with. And it's also available online. This is also made public to all institutions, private as well as public. Our modified curriculum, each teacher in the affected parishes was given a copy, and each school in the other parishes were given copies, and it is as well available online, and it is available to all institutions. Our resources at grade 4, as I said before, those workbooks have been dispatched. We will have a monitoring in place where we go out to see the level of use, the extent to which our students are using the materials, and how it is that they are interacting with it, and then we supply them with the other volumes. So they will be supplied right up until the end of the year. Our national exams, as at the secondary level, we have suspended the grade 9 achievement test for 2026. We will use a different placement mechanism for we have about 50 students maximum that we give this assessment to get to transition into high school. As it relates to CSEC and CAPE, we have, through consultation with the Caribbean Examination Council, we have decided on 2 options. Option A will see students in the parishes, the regions 1, 2, 6, and 7, they will sit the full administration of the Caribbean Examination exams for CSEC and CAPE. That is, they will do the paper 1, the paper 2, and the SBAs. The option B, that's a modified approach, that is for the affected parishes. What is interesting to note, we are not just giving these parishes this option. They have the choice through consultation with their students as well as their parents to decide on the option that is best for their institutions. The options are not students related, but they are institution related, meaning the entire school has to sit the option. So in these parishes, they can either decide if they want to do option A, which is the full administration, or if they are so impacted that they want their students to do option B, which requires them to only do the multiple choice and the SBAs. Interestingly, through our consultation with CXC, Jamaica was given a SBA concession. That means there's a modified version to what the school-based assessment component for our students should be for Jamaica. If it is that our students have already completed their SBAs, they are not asked to redo it. If they have not, they can now apply the concession that has been awarded to them through CXC. The other exam, City and Guild, that's the regular administration, our speaking and listening component. Our schools decided that they want to go the regular route for City and Guild. However, City and Guilds still provided us with options just in case there are different school students experiences different challenges. There are options available. The exam dates remain the same, and I want to advise that there's a bulletin that has been out, bulletin number 4 for 2026, that gives an outline of everything that I'm speaking to as it relates to our examinations. Our NC TVET, that's the local exam, it remains the same. We have lessen the number of sitting, and we only have 1 sitting in February and 1 in June. The students will receive their results in a timely manner. Our interagency support, our collaboration continues with the Ministry of Health and Wellness, JPS, and the National Water Commission. And again, UNICEF for our tents. I really want to applaud and thank the UNICEF for being out there. They have given us tents, they've given us sanitation, they've given us learning kits at the early childhood level and as well at the primary level. And our many donors and our local publishers. As I close, colleagues, I just want to remind the public that while Hurricane Melissa may have tested our system, it also highlighted our collective strength. The Ministry of Education remains fully committed to rebuilding stronger, planning smarter, and supporting every school community to recover now and beyond. education in Jamaica will not only recover, it will emerge even more resilient. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Madam CEO, for that presentation. You kind of kept within the time. And I know a lot of Jamaicans wanted that information. When I see children, they ask me, what's happening with CSEC? And I know parents are, what's happening with PEP? So I asked the media if you can please get that information out to everyone in relation to that. I had had cabinet notes, but I'm just going to go into the questions just to see if there are questions from the media. Some of our ministers had to go. They are on the committee for PAAC, and so they had to go to treat with that. If there are questions that you have that I cannot answer, we will get that to you separately. You are going to take the questions.
Hello? It's on? Oh, sorry. Good morning, everybody. Mahir is Stewart, Nationwide News here. A question to Minister Morris Dixon. In terms of last year, there was an alleged incident of rape at Case in Portland. And when we had the head of the school on Nationwide at 5, he was detailing a myriad of issues with the school in terms of security, whether it be fencing, camera, lighting, all of that stuff. In terms of getting Case into a situation where it is more secure, what has the ministry done?
All right. I would just note in terms of Case, I actually got an update yesterday, and it wasn't from the school. We got the update from the student body president. Because in cases like this, you get your update from the school and they outline what they want to do. But we actually got an update from the student body president to find out how the students felt, because that's important, because the students were saying that they felt unsafe. And we know that the school has done quite a bit. The school has beefed up security. They have a shuttle bus now. They've also hired more security guards on the campus, and the students said they were quite happy with these changes. They felt they were effective changes, and they also noted that the school administration has been working with the students and keeping the students in the loop. And so this is an example where I'm very happy, and where I take things a little differently, and my team too, and they do go out and we get corroborating evidence in terms of whether or not something has truly been addressed. And so we're happy that the administration has taken those steps. The ministry has supported them in giving them infrastructural support and financial support so they can do this beef up of security. And we're also happy that the students feel that it has been effective. Yes, and a suspect has been apprehended.
And secondly,
yes,
in terms of the modifications to CSEC and CAPE, I believe there's a release from the National Secondary Schools Council. And in that release, they called on, stakeholder meetings in terms of speaking with students and letting them have a say in how the modified paper should be modified. I saw the modifications there, but is that something the ministry would be able to do, or?
Well, the ministry always has consultations. And I know in terms of PEP, we would have had the entire PEP committee that has many people on it. It has the independent schools on it. It has the JTA on it. It has some of our student groups on it. And so we have different approaches where we do consultations. But in terms of exams, there is usually an emphasis on the principals and the teachers and really having the consultations there. But our secondary school association, all of our student bodies, we do engage with them. And anytime they have any concerns, we do have our teams ready to work with them. And so if they have any concerns, they can always reach out, and we're very open to hearing their thoughts.
Okay, I guess my last question would be, in terms of the STEAM toy initiative that Dr. Wheatley was doing, yes, that would be for the children, but in terms of an evolution of STEAM initiatives for children in primary and prep schools, secondary schools and even tertiary. What's the
Yeah.
ministry's plan where that's concerned?
All right, well, that's would take a whole day, but I would love to just start on STEAM. I mean, we've built in STEAM as an approach from very early. And if those who have children, you see it in the way we teach, even in terms of an English class at the primary level, you see it bringing in science. And so what you're reading, the text you're reading that you have to respond to are very science-based. So for us, STEAM is not this theoretical thing. It's actually an approach to teaching, an approach that utilizes art. So, you're teaching a new topic. You ask them to draw something. You ask them to be creative as a part of it. And then also you bring in the science in subjects that you would not ordinarily see it. Even in religious education, you see the STEAM curriculum coming through. So we started from in the primary schools, and then that is seen in the curriculum, even in the secondary schools. But we're also working very hard to introduce, for example, robotics in our schools. We have many more robotics kits that have been ordered by Heart. Heart is doing a program, and also the ministry working with eLearning Jamaica, where you're seeing much more of our robotics clubs across the country, and the ministry is supporting that, so that even at the extracurricular level, we're also incorporating it. And of course, the work we're doing in TVET, because we're saying to our students, TVET is important. And we have even our traditional high schools now saying, I had one school tell me they no longer make English literature compulsory because their students want to do more of the TVET types subjects. That is amazing. And so those are efforts from the ministry that we're seeing bearing fruit, and many more. There are many more initiatives that we can talk about, but it's a good question that you're asking, because the world is changing, and that's where we're going to want our children to be, and we are actively working to make that happen. That's it. All right. No other questions from the media? I'm going to ask the students, do you have a question? Does any student have a question? No, it was just wonderful, but it was wonderful to have you here. So that means that I have 10 minutes to give you some things that happened at cabinet. Wow, that's amazing. All right, let me get to my cabinet notes, and I do have on my glasses, so I'll be able to see them now. As you know, there were many countries that offered assistance. I would like you to note that Rwanda and their team, they arrived today, and they will be working to help with rehabilitation in St. James. You had already spoken also about Guyana and Ghana offering assistance and working with the JDF in that respect. At cabinet this week, we also approved increased rates for pensioners. There was a submission on that. Our pensioners are very important. We always spend a lot of time on our vulnerable groups, and that was one area that we did discuss in cabinet this week. Also, the NARA, which a lot of people ask about, the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority, that is now in place. It is operating as a department of cabinet, and the cabinet secretary has oversight. In a very short period of time, you will start seeing advertisements for the positions in NARA. We also had conversations around an advisory board for NARA and individuals to be placed on that with requisite expertise. We also discussed the National Partnership Council that has civil society, it has the church, it has academia, it has the opposition on it, and that body being an important part of the oversight mechanism of NARA. We also discussed, as you would have seen yesterday in Parliament, the Jury Act. An amendment to the Jury Act. They were tabled in Parliament yesterday. I know you UTech students were watching Parliament yesterday, and you saw that the Jury Act was tabled. Before an act can be tabled, or an amendment, the amendment bill can be tabled, we have to approve it in cabinet, and that was done at cabinet on Monday. That increases the compensation to jurors. A lot of jurors complain that it is really expensive to take on their civic duty. And so in this amendment, we focus on that, increasing remuneration to jurors who do that important work. And it also looks at instances where the judge may discharge the jury in the event of jury tampering. And you know, there was a big case with someone called Vibes Cartel, and there was a ruling from the Privy Council. And that was really very instrumental in terms of that particular change, so that we have the ability for the judge to discharge the jury if you feel there has been jury tampering, and therefore to be able to continue the trial without the jury. So you see, these things matter, students. So there's a lot of work that was going on in cabinet. A lot of boards were approved also, and we also approved the new program that was announced earlier today that we spoke about, the shelter recovery program. A lot of time was spent on that, and that's in relation to cash grants to those who were affected by Hurricane Melissa. And tomorrow there will be a very big launch of that with the Prime Minister leading, where you will hear the quantum of those cash grants that will go to individuals. As another note, this morning you would have noted something a little bit different that we don't usually do. We don't usually necessarily take on misinformation and disinformation or information that is false. That is changing. We are going to have to do so in this context where something is said that is not true. We will be countering it. We will come with the receipts. We will play the videos from months ago. We have the records, and we will do that. We have to focus on being able to respond to misinformation and disinformation. There's a lot of that out there in the public sphere, and we cannot leave it unchallenged. And so you will be seeing new approaches from the Ministry of Information in terms of dispelling those things. And in many instances, you know, we call them misinformation and disinformation. Those are fancy words for lies. And so where there are lies, we will be correcting them. And there have been many of those. And I know Minister Morgan will be working very closely with me in relation to addressing that issue of lies that are proliferating. And we will give you the facts. And that's why we ask you to tune in here, because we bring the ministers, we open them up for challenge and allow them to tell you the work that we're doing, and we tell you what we're doing in cabinet, because what we do is not secret. We're doing it because we've been asked to do this by the people of Jamaica, and we take that role very, very seriously. I want to thank the media who come every week. Thank you for coming and for getting the word out. We really do appreciate it, and we thank you for coming each week. I have to say a special thank you to the GIS team and PBCJ team for always prioritizing our post-cabinet press briefings. I really want to thank you for doing that. And there's so many things to celebrate at the end of this. Last year was a difficult year with Hurricane Melissa, and there's still many people who are hurting. But I tell you, the government, in cabinet, we spend most of our time talking about how we can help those who've been affected in the West. And you're seeing it. You're seeing light being restored. Darlistan is going to be getting light within 24 hours. That means that so many of our water systems will also be able to come back on stream and help those who need it. And we've been doing this responsibly as a government. And so as we end our first post-cabinet press briefing, I'm told I need to remind you that it is Earthquake Awareness Week. And we know about hurricanes. We had Hurricane Melissa last year, but we're also in an earthquake belt. And so we have to remember what we have to do in the event of an earthquake. And the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management is observing Earthquake Week this week under the theme, Resilient Jamaica. We weather the storm and brace for the shake. Sounds quite ominous. And today in all our schools, we're doing today's National School Earthquake Drill Day. And so there are earthquake drills happening in our schools across Jamaica. So if you see some children running around or some unusual activity, it's because they're doing the drills. And so as we end this morning at 10:58 a.m., I thank you for listening. I thank you to everyone who presented this morning. And I, as always, just pray that God will continue to bless this wonderful country that we call Jamaica land we love. Thank you.